Hello my friends, Emma Reese Crime here, your fellow crime, thriller and mystery book lover. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Before I start this video, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you who commented really kind words on my book haul when I announced my pregnancy the other week. In this video, I'm going to be doing my June reading wrap up. I'm going to start this video with my least favourite books and we're going to end on a high with my favourite books, but the real question is, did I give any of these books 5 stars out of 5? I read 10 books in total and I DNF'd 2. Since starting BookTube, I have noticed that I read a lot less than I used to do because obviously editing, filming, that takes up some reading time. But honestly, I am so glad that that is the case because it has been amazing connecting with you all so far. My first DNF of June was Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead, and I know you're thinking to yourself, that's a bit rogue, but trust me, there was method behind my madness. She has written 4, maybe 5 thriller books which I've read, and she's written I think 2 romance books which I haven't read. So I thought I would read these 2 romance books, take one for the team to do an ultimate Ashley Winstead book ranking, but guys, I'm so sorry, I just can't do it. I'm just going to do a thriller book ranking instead because that romance book was awful. It was not my cup of tea whatsoever. My next DNF was a soft DNF because I am going to go back to it. It wasn't a book problem, it was a me problem. I just wasn't in the mood, and that book was Love Mom. The main character, whose name escapes me, has a mum who is a famous crime writer who passes, and after her funeral, I think it is, she finds a letter on her passenger seat in her car, and I can't remember what this letter says, but it's from her mum who is dead. I think that tells you everything you need to know, that I just wasn't in the mood for it, but there's been incredible reviews for it so far. So when I do go back to it, I'm going to go in with an open mind. Please don't let me put you off. My least favourite book of June, which I actually read, was Kill Your Darlings by Peter Swanson. If you've seen other past videos from me recently, you might have seen me talk about this. Wendy and Tom have been married for 25 years. Wendy then discovers that Tom is writing a book which could dangerously expose their deepest, darkest secrets, so naturally Wendy wants to kill Tom. So the book starts at the end, works backwards in timeline and ends at the beginning, so I thought that this was a really clever idea, something you don't come across much in books. However, in a usual book you read to get to the exciting ending, but in this book you get that exciting ending at the start, so then after that initial excitement it gets a bit dull and boring. Then once I got towards the end and found out their deepest, darkest secret, I was a bit like, is that it? Whatever, I don't care. But what I will say is the final chapter was quite clever in a classic Peter Swanson style. I've spoken about this book on my TikTok and on my Instagram account, and I've had a couple of comments from people saying they were really excited about it, but since seeing my review they're not sure they're going to read it. But what I will say is, please don't let me put you off reading it. Just because I didn't love it doesn't mean that you won't. I gave this book 3 stars out of 5, so it wasn't a hate book, it just was a meh book. Next is another book you might have seen me talk about on past videos, and that is Into the Fire by G.D. Wright. Main character Steve is on a night out with his wife and his 2 friends. They're walking home and he comes across a burning building. He runs into said burning building to save a baby, so he emerges from the ashes as a hero. However, later on down the line, he becomes a suspect in a different investigation. So what is he, a hero or a suspect? Overall, I thought this was okay. I didn't love it as much as his first book After the Storm, but I still thought it was worth a read. I just thought that maybe there was a little bit too much going on, and it does connect, but I don't think it connects particularly well. I think the writing needs to be neatened up in that aspect. The ending does take a dark and twisted turn, which normally I would love, but maybe I was in a bad mood when I read it because the reviews for this are excellent. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. Thunderhead is completely off-brand for me, and it is the sequel to Scythe. I won't tell you what it's about because in case you've not read Scythe and you want to read Scythe, I don't want to accidentally spoil anything for you, but to be honest I don't have much to say about it apart from the fact it was a nice, easy palette cleanser and it was just what I needed at the time, and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I'm terribly sorry, but again, you might have seen me speak on past videos about The Woman in Suite 11 by Ruth Ware. Maybe it's just me, but I feel that since I've started posting twice a week, I feel like in my videos I'm just going on about the same books over and over again, so I do apologise if I keep repeating myself for certain books. The Woman in Suite 11 is the sequel to The Woman in Cabin 10, and it's set 10 years later in timeline, and the main character, Lo Blacklock, is back. She is invited to a luxury Swiss chateau, and she thinks that this is the perfect excuse to start working again because she's had a break. The chateau is owned by this millionaire, and once she arrives, some ghosts of her past start to appear, and then the millionaire who owns the chateau's mistress asks for Lo's help in escaping. Lisa Jewell has said that it was a slow burn dream of a book, but I thought it was quite fast-paced and tense and grippy, but maybe that was just me. This is fine to read as a standalone, but I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if I'd have read The Woman in Cabin 10 first, but I'm definitely going to read that soon because I want to read that book before watching the Netflix series, which I think has Keira Knightley in, which is so exciting. I gave this 4 stars out of 5. Next we have It Should Have Been You by Andrea Mara. Is It Should Have Been You like a song title or something from a movie? It really feels familiar, but maybe it's because I've been seeing this book a lot on social media. Susan sends her sisters a bitchy gossipy text about her neighbour, but doesn't send it to her sisters. She accidentally sends it to the neighbourhood WhatsApp group chat. Then this sets off a chain reaction of a load of catastrophic events. This was mine and Michaela from What Michaela Reads book club pick for June. It had really short chapters, making it addictive and really hard to put down. You know when you're reading a book and you're like, just one more chapter, and because they're only a couple of pages long, suddenly you've made it through 100 pages. I was definitely in the minority at book club, and I was one of the ones which enjoyed it the most. When we have our book club chat, we really go in for the book and check for any plot holes, and other people in book club picked up on loads of holes which I just completely missed and had gone way over my head. I gave this book 4 stars, but it was the highest star rating. Only me and one other girl gave it 4 stars. Everyone else rated it much lower. The lowest rating we had, I think, was 2.5 stars, but we actually did have a D and F too. The next book I read was The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark because I have seen it everywhere on social media and I had FOMO. I actually did the audio of this and the narrator did a good job. Main character Olivia is a ghostwriter, but she finds herself in a financial predicament. She is left with no other option and she has to take on a job which is to help her estranged father write his final book. Her estranged father is the notorious Vincent Taylor, whose brother and sister were brutally murdered when he was younger and he was a suspect. She thinks that she's there to help him write his final fiction book, but no, she is there to help him write a tell-all memoir. In Burn After Reading, the main character is also in a bit of a financial predicament herself, and she ends up taking on a ghostwriting job for a man who has been accused of murdering his wife, and he is also doing a tell-all memoir, so the plots are kind of similar. I thought Burn After Reading was okay and I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5, but I thought that The Ghostwriter was much better. It was more atmospheric, darker, I thought it was better written, and it has some good twists in there as well, and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Next up is The Tradwife Secret by Liane Child. Main character Madison March is a Nara Smith type character. If you've seen or follow Nara Smith on TikTok, I'm personally obsessed with her videos. Anyway, so in The Tradwife Secret, Madison March is an influencer. She's got millions of followers and her content involves home life, her cooking things from scratch, showcasing her beautiful children and her beautiful home. She ends up hiring a live-in tutor to tutor her children, and this tutor arrives and begins to realise that the life that Madison portrays online is completely false. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. This read like a trashy magazine, and I mean that in a good way. It was so addictive and so hard to put down. I did this on audio and I thought that the narrator did a really good job. I also think that this would read well as a book too, because for some of the chapters they start off with like snips of people's social media comments, and I always think that breaks up the flow of a story really nicely. Overall, I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. Next is Whistle by Linwood Barclay, his first horror book. Annie is a child narrator and author, and 2 tragedies hit her life in quick succession, so she ends up deciding to rent a house out the city for a few months with her son. They arrive at this house and her son finds this toy train track, and he sets it up in the house and then strange things start happening. If you see me speak about this on past videos, you will know I was skeptical about this because Linwood hasn't written a horror book before, but he smashed it. It was bone chilling. I do not recommend that you read this while going to sleep because it gave me crazy scary dreams. This is definitely the best thing he's written in a long while as well. And when I was at his book signing, he spoke about how that this was the most fun he'd had writing a book in a long time, and I think that you can really tell. I've seen nothing but fantastic reviews for this book. I absolutely loved it and I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. We are 10 books down and 2 to go. If you've made it this far and don't already, if you're able to hit that subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Full reviews of all these books can also be found on my website, www.emmareescrime.com. Now on for the final 2 books. My second favourite book of June was A Beautiful Way to Die by Eleni Kyriacou. I loved her last book, The Unspeakable Acts of Zina Pavlou, but this just blew my socks off. It's set in the 50s and you get such essence of Hollywood glamour. The story follows 2 main characters. The first is Ginny Watkins, an upcoming actress in the Hollywood scene. The second character is Stella Hope, Hollywood's most famous actress of the time. Obviously, these 2 women have completely different experiences of Hollywood stardom, so it makes it really interesting. If you love the 50s glamour of The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, then I think that you should check this out. The story is completely different, but the vibes are kind of similar. I absolutely loved this and I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. Now on for the final book, and did it score 5 stars out of 5? My favourite book of June is completely off-brand for me, and that was Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune, which is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. As this is off-brand for me, I won't go into too much detail, but it follows magical children in an orphanage, and it's just so wholesome, so cosy. Oh, it just gives me all the feels. It is amazing. I really enjoyed this book, but I thought that book 1 was better. But book 1 is in a league of its own. It's almost a 6-star read. It was phenomenal. I really thought this was fantastic, even though it wasn't quite as good as book 1. But the real question is, did I give it 5 stars out of 5? And the answer is yes, I did. And it's so nice to have a 5-star read in the month. Thank you ever so much for taking your time to watch this video. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Bye.